So, the topic of today's video is college a scam? And I know there's going to be some of y'all out there who are going to disagree with me and what I have to say, but I'm going to give points for both in this video, so just stay with me. Understand this though, if you try to argue with me, do not start crying like a little baby when I do not agree with you. The first question I'm going to ask you before anything, which I assume is the case with you, is do you want to be a millionaire? If you don't, right, which is totally fine, I guess you don't want that life. But my question is, why would you want to go to college then? Are you going to college because of the money, or are you not going to college because of the money? Right, that's the point I'm trying to get across. Because if you're not going to college for money, you might as well just go do some bullshit. Just chill. So, do you want to be a millionaire? No. 88% of millionaires graduate from college. In other words, right, you're more likely to become a millionaire if you go to college. Great. Now that we have that established, let's move on. The average millionaire is 61 years old. You can also look that up, right? These things, the things that I'm bringing up in this video are not going to be 100% accurate because it's literally impossible to be 100% accurate, but in general, as accurate as it can get. So now you might be wondering why did I include the average life expectancy? Well, I think it's relevant for us to know that, okay, so 88% of millionaires graduate from college. Great, but this also means that the average millionaire is around 60 years old. What does this tell us? This tells us that you have 15 years left to live if you are a man, to enjoy yourself a little bit, assuming that's what you want to do with the money. And for women, 20. Right, but then this is also the case. Would you want the money when you're older? Would you? Right, that's something you have to ask yourself. So you are more likely to become a millionaire if you go to college, right, just by the numbers alone. But you are also 60 years old, and you're likely to die in 15 years. So think about that for a second. There's a correlation between age, college, and you becoming a millionaire. The older you are, the more likely you are a millionaire if you went to college. What the data is basically showing is that if you go to college, you're going to become a millionaire when you're 60. Right? That's not the case for everybody, but that's the average. You can argue with that if you want, but that's what the numbers show. Now, the reasons against college. I'm going to start off giving the reasons against college, and I'm going to go to the reasons for college at the end. I suggest you watch the whole video though and stop being a little baby. So I have a few charts here. Right, this chart over here covers pretty much saying that more people nowadays go to college. This by default means that it's not as impressive as it was in the past. In other words, you have more competition nowadays for the same degrees that you would be getting. It almost doubled since 2000, and this was with pretty much every single degree level. More competition, more people graduating. And this is the question that I want you to ask yourself is, would you want to be another statistic, or another person with the role that can be labeled like would you want to be another police officer? Or would you want to be you? Would you want to be known for being another police officer? Or would you want to be you? In other words, the world doesn't need another college graduate. It doesn't need another person with a degree. It needs another you. You understand? Now, if you disagree with this is literally what the point of America is. Right? And I'm speaking from the US because that's where I'm from, but the US was founded on these concepts. Okay, so moving on, this chart on the left, on the bottom left right here that you can see, it just highlights the average tuition cost adjusted for inflation for public 2-year community college and for a public 4-year college over time. As time progressed, cost has also increased. The same degree that you would be able to get in 1970 has lost value, right, because more people are getting it, but it's also gained value in the terms of a monetary sense. So you're paying more nowadays than you would in the past. It's almost a 400% increase, 300%, some shit like that. In my personal opinion, though, it would be a shame for you to spend your life doing work that another person can do if you don't want to get rich, or if you do want to get rich. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, going back to the point I was making, where it's only work that you can do, right? There can be another police officer that can replace you in an instant, but there can't be another you. In other words, if you're good at being a musician, in my personal opinion, it would be a waste of your life to not pursue that, right? Because can there be another musician? Yes, right, but there's not another person that has your voice. And you might try to make the same argument for being a police officer, but you understand the point I'm trying to make. It's not the same. Do you just want to be another worker, or do you want to have a name? And there's nothing wrong with working a regular job, right? Like, if that's what you want out of your life, you just want to have kids and family and house, right? Cool. But these are questions that I'm telling you to ask yourself, because this is my opinion. So, and by the way, this is also just the cost of per year by semesters, just in case y'all didn't know. Just clearing that up. It's not $11,000 for a 4-year degree. It's $11,000 for a year. Okay, so this leads to my next point, though, which is we're gonna go over the cost. Now, on the left, we have the average cost of tuition and fees as of 2025. Right, you can see that, okay, if you go to a community college, which goes into my point, which is, do you want to go to college for the experience, or do you want to go to college for the degree? Right, do you want to go to college to have a social life, or do you want to go to college to learn, right, and be able to get a job that you actually want to pursue a career in? So $8,000. This is the cost of tuition and fees, right? That doesn't include if you want to live there, if you want to live at the college, because that's a whole separate thing you gotta pay for. That's gonna be $23,000 for you, $120,000, and $240,000. Now, if you have a scholarship, or your parents are paying for it, or whatever the case is, then you might want to consider it more, right? Especially if you know exactly what you want to do. The problem is, though, that most people don't know what they want to do, but they just go to college because of their image, or because of the fact that their parents want them to go to college, and they want to feel like they wouldn't be a failure to their parents, or like they're going to not impress their parents or disappoint them. So, what do you want out of your life? I can't make the decision for you. I'm just giving you your things in your life that you need to think about, right? Because regardless of your age, or maybe you're in college right now, maybe you're younger, there will come a point in time where you need to make this decision, and it will be one of the most important decisions you make in your life, because it drastically changes. Looking at the numbers here, it would drastically change your life, because you will most likely be required to go in debt if you're not paying for it, like I said, or you don't have a scholarship. Not only that, but you're committing yourself for 4 years, at least. The average bachelor doesn't graduate until probably 6 years, so most likely 6 years until you graduate. Now, the average debt is, as you can see, $28,000 or $29,000. But the interesting part is that even out of these people that do graduate, 41% of the people end up working in jobs that don't require a degree. And this is part of the fact that usually when we have to make this choice, it's when we're young, or we're more susceptible to just making an irrational decision that we actually haven't thought about. And my advice to you would be, if you don't know what you want to do, is to not go to college. Work for a year, work for 2 years, figure out what you want to do, figure out a plan that you have for your life, because once you leave school, you're just going to get thrown out, right? You're not sure what you want to do, and being forced to be in a position where you have to make a decision within a few weeks, months, or whatever the case is usually when you make a mistake. And then 27% of bachelors end up working in a job that's not required. These are actually high numbers, if I'm being honest with you. 41% and 27%, that's 1/4, nearly 1/3. Now, assuming that you don't know what you want to do, right, you're probably watching this video. It's most likely the case that you're watching this video if you actually know what you want to do with your life, which is, if you want to be a doctor, obviously you have to go to college. If you want to be an engineer, obviously you have to go to college. But this is more so for the people that don't know what they want to do. They don't really have a career in their mind that they would actually want to go for. They're just doing it for society, right? For the people around them to not feel a certain way, right? They're trying to run away from the feeling that they would get if they choose not to go, pretty much going against the grain, right? Going against what is expected. I'm going to go over the reasons for college. The only reason I believe you should be going to college is if you actually want to learn something that requires a degree. If you're going to fucking communications degree, if you want to learn how to communicate, start fucking talking, okay? You don't need a communications degree to learn how to talk. Stop being a dumbass. It's only for the things that you actually need, which is like STEM degrees and lawyers and doctors and stuff like that. That's the only reason why you should waste your time in college. Regardless if you even go or not, you could still learn these things on your own. Problem is, once most people don't go to school or they get a degree, that's when they stop learning it in general. I want to make this point too. If you want to go to college because perhaps you've been caged in for high school or any of that shit, right? You've been caged in by your parents, or you just want to live life and try to live the college life. Pretty much you're going for a social connection to meet people, not network. I don't believe in that shit. Only if you're trying to live the college life, trying to have the social connection, trying to do the degenerate shit, because that's what college is. It's pretty much just a fucking booze fest with a bunch of young people getting drunk and going to parties and hooking up with girls and shit. So, if you haven't lived that life yet, and that's something you want to do, I actually recommend that you do go to college, because that gives you the best opportunity to actually meet people your age, experience life, which I know will eventually, in the long run, make you a better person, because the experience that you gain from that is valuable. Moving on to why reasons for college. As you can see, right, the longer you go to college, the more degrees you make, the higher your earning potential is. And I don't think that people don't know that, but you shouldn't have this. The only reason you should go is if you go for a bachelor's degree, right? You only see a substantial change in salary once you get the bachelor's degree. Just know that's the commitment you're gonna have to make. Now, on the right, you can see it's pretty much the same thing, just a different chart. But this one also has an unemployment rate on it. Now, if we're being honest, you wouldn't really be able to tell the difference in unemployment rate between 1% and 6%. Right, it's such a small percentage. It's not really relevant, if I'm being real. And if it is, the only really thing you should be considering is if you don't have a high school diploma. So going on even further, this is pretty much just to add on to the case of the last slide that I just showed you, but this is over a lifetime. The other ones were just showing over, I think it was a week. This one's over a lifetime. Pretty much you'll make an extra $900,000 or something. Going back to this though, if you think that your life is going to change that much, but with making an extra $500, right? If you think your life is going to improve that much by making an extra $500 on average, right? This is in general for people. Okay, go. But if that was never your goal, to make an extra $500 or any of that shit, my question is, why would you go? right? And I'm not trying to dissuade you from going to college if that's what you want to do, because I actually think it's valuable for some people, but that's just something to consider. Now, the chart on top pretty much is saying, if you don't know how to read it, above is all of the percentage that people that make more than someone with a bachelor's degree, which is the red line. Right, this little line, 7%, 14, 23, 28, 61. So the percentage of the circle that's above the red line is a percentage of people that make more money than someone with a bachelor's degree. But if you don't go to college, 14% of people that have a high school degree are going to make more than a bachelor's. 23% of people that have some college but no degree are going to make more than bachelor's. You get the point. Now, like I said, this is going back to the beginning of the video. 88% of millionaires graduate from college. If you want the higher likelihood of becoming a millionaire, maybe you should consider going to college. But like I said, understand that that means that you're likely to become a millionaire when you're older. Why? Because the only way a career works is that eventually, over time, as you continue to get good at the at the career that you have a degree in, you will get a pay raise, and which will eventually, over time also, you'll be saving money and trying to live a okay life where you can actually save and use the things to be considered a millionaire. If you're okay with spending the time, okay, it's gonna probably take me 30 years to become a millionaire. Cool. But if you're trying to become a millionaire faster, there's probably a better way out there. Now that's up for you to figure out, but there's probably a better way out there. And then another correlation here, so the longer you go to college, 52% hold a master's or doctorate degree. Right, so half of millionaires have a master's or a doctoral degree. That's a pretty good percentage, if I'm being honest with you. Right? This is going to be the final thing before I end this video, but I just want you to look at it if you are going to college. Right? If you've watched this video and you still think that you want to go to college, or you already know what you want to do, cool. I'm not here to fight you. I don't really care about your life. It's your decision. Just know that you're going to have to live with it, and don't spend your time and try to come back and blame me for the decision that you made. In other words, don't be a bitch. Take responsibility for the decision that you're going to make in your life, or the decision that you have made in your life. What this goes over, though, is just pretty much the degrees that you, or the fields that you should be wanting to go in from a monetary standpoint. And I'm not going to read all this shit, but you can see here clearly. Sub if you're new. That's going to be it, though. Let me know what y'all think about this right here. Now I'm gone. I'm finna catch y'all.